This episode is sponsored by Zingari Man. More on them later. Hello and welcome to another episode of That's What People Do. You are joined by me, Ryan McGowan, and as always, James Kay. How are you doing today, bud?
I'm good, Ryan. How you doing?
Yeah, good. The world may or may not be ending. I think at the time of recording, America has met with Russia very briefly through like intermediaries, and they're like, let's discuss Ukraine war without Ukraine. Yeah, it didn't go well apparently.
No, there's a lot going on in there. I don't think Ukraine's enjoying being left out of its own peace talks, but that's America for you.
That's America. And then at the time of recording as well, our Prime Minister Keir Starmer was like, yo, British troops on the ground in Ukraine as a peacekeeping force. Bit scary because NATO and all that stuff.
Yeah, if I'm being honest with you, Ryan, I'm in a state at the minute where I choose not to look at the news, which is weird because I work in the news, but it just makes me sad. Instead, I just go for a walk and maybe buy myself a sweet treat.
Well, it's funny because we seem to be on like opposite cycles, unlike ladies sometimes when they can sync up. We on politics have sort of gone the opposite way, where I'm now ramping up my interest again. And I feel like I've had enough of a mental health break from politics that I'm happy to look into it a bit more. And you're doing the opposite now. So one of us has to be into it at one point.
Yeah, I just can't be bothered. If I could buy a nice plot of land in the countryside somewhere and just buy a cottage and grow my own vegetables and then I live off those vegetables, I would absolutely do it.
It's a simple life.
Yeah.
Anyway.
It really is.
Let's get into it today, okay? So today we're going to be telling a love story, okay? One that traverses cultures, language, continents, and oceans. A love story that, if we're being honest, by the end of the episode will probably make you shirk at the idea of calling it a love story. But it's what the world wants it to be and what Disney gave the world. So it's exactly what we're going to call it. Let's talk about Pocahontas. But, as always, let's go back in time and start our story in 16th century England under the reign of Elizabeth I. Because, you know, I love context.
A lot of old context.
A lot of context. Now, if you hark back to our two-parter episodes on Sir Francis Drake, you may remember that he was given letters of marque by the Queen, making him, in essence, a legal pirate, whose job it was to raid Spanish ships on the other side of the Atlantic, in the Caribbean, and on the coast of continental America.
Halt. Say that word again.
Caribbean.
Say it again.
Caribbean.
No, say it properly.
Pirates of the Caribbean.
I will fucking swing at you through this. You're English. Have some decorum. Say it properly.
Pirates of the Caribbean.
Thank you. Proceed.
Yeah. Let's. We're talking about Sir Francis Drake. We're going to ignore the fact that he has a very brief appearance in slave trade. But anyway. The reason for the raiding was because the Spanish Empire was absolutely raking it in from their lands on the Americas, which got the English thinking, why don't we just establish our own settlements over in the New World and reap the benefits like the Spanish? After all, we are the English, the world is ours to play with. That is foreshadowing. So in 1584, Queen Elizabeth I gave her favourite action man, Sir Walter Raleigh, a royal charter authorising him to explore, colonise and rule any, quote, remote, heathen and barbarous lands, countries and territories not actually possessed of any Christian prince or inhabited by a Christian people. Now, I find this distinction quite funny. It's incredibly ignorant of any other culture that is just not her own. If it ain't Christian, it's barbarous, and Christians have a right to lord over these and convert them. Which is quite funny because she's like, you know, she's this virgin queen, but she's actually like, you can go out there and all barbarous people is yours. Okay, queen.
A lot of people glamorise Elizabeth I. I think because she was Henry VIII's daughter, they see it sort of like female power, which is kind of, it is what it is. But you also forget that Mary, her sister, came before her. There was a lot of bloodshed. And then Elizabeth came in and then did a lot of bloodshed, just killed the opposite people.
Yeah.
Because she was a Protestant, so she killed Catholics. And then she was heavily involved in the slave trade. So while it was women in power, let's maybe dial it back a little bit.
But you also got to remember, she is a woman in a man's world and she has to play the man. She's got to be big.
She does, Ryan, but it's 2025 and I'm going to hold people to modern standards because that's what we do nowadays.
No.
Slave's bad.
We can't do that. Yeah. Anyway, thus Virginia was founded, named after the Virgin Queen. They were met with indigenous Americans who were brought back to meet the Queen as some odd zoo. Am I the only one as well who thinks it's weird to name a land after your sovereign's sexual status? I find that really weird.
Is that really?
Virginia
Wow.
is named after her because she was a virgin. It's the Virgin
Does that
Queen
mean
of Virginia.
You've got like the Virgin Islands as well? Is that similar? Do you think?
I wouldn't be surprised. I
That
would
is
not be
weird.
surprised. But you can't. How can you name it after? Like, can you imagine the lands that we would name after our royal family as it is right now? Can you imagine the names we could come up with?
Christ, yeah. Charles would be.
Prince Andrew's Island. Can you imagine what that would be called?
We won't go into that, Ryan.
We will
Just
not.
a man who doesn't sweat.
No. Yes. They also founded the first English settlement on American soil, Roanoke, which was a colossal failure, but it did set a standard. England could make it there and settle with enough will. Now, at the turn of the century, Queen Elizabeth I was dead and her cousin had succeeded her, James I of England and VI of Scotland. Now, curious about this new world, the Virginia Company of London was set up, and among a few others, Jamestown was established in 1607. Despite being a business operation to make money, the settlement needed to actually be governed by those living there. When the settlers arrived, they opened up a sealed document detailing their objectives of who would be fulfilling each role, and among them was a man in chains, John Smith. A man who could arguably have a whole episode of his own. This guy has been out and about. He has fought many wars. He's been to plenty of lands and had loads of adventures. And this one adventure is one of many that he will have in his life. But why is he in chains? I can't find out why exactly, but he has been arrested for trying to start a mutiny over on the Atlantic crossing. Now, upon landfall at the site of Jamestown, he is to be executed. But first, they want to check out these orders from London. Now, John Smith must have breathed a sigh of relief when they unravelled these orders to find out, while reading aloud, that he is to be assigned as one of the governing men of this new colony, sparing him from execution.
Oh, that is good luck. Well
It is
done.
very... You'd have to just laugh, wouldn't you, when you sort of... The guy that wants you dead in chains unravels and goes, and the governor will be... Oh, for fuck's sake.
I also love that his name just isn't a name. Does that make sense? His name is the name you give when you don't want to give your name.
Yes, he is the like the John Doe, English John Doe. We call everyone John Smith. I wonder whether that maybe has anything to do with the fact that he has such, and let's say he could be worth an episode on his own. He's got such a rich story. His life is incredible. He gets given like his own banner. You know, like everyone gets, what is it, like a Lord of the Game of Thrones style? Everyone's got their own shield with their banner on it and stuff. And he has one which is like 3 heads, and it's supposed to be from a time he was fighting a war over in like what is now Turkey, I suppose. And he beheaded like 3 men in the battle. And they, whoever it was that he was fighting for, gave him the honor of being allowed to create his own shield with his own sort of standard. And he went, "Oh, I'll have the 3 heads on there." But back in England, they were like, "I don't recognise your shield. It doesn't work here, mate." And he's like, "Oh, fuck," because he's a mercenary, you know.
Yeah.
Anyway, He's a cool guy. He's a really cool guy. Now, I'm not going to get into the day-to-day, but I think it's fair to say that you don't want to be one of the first colonists in America, okay? Disease is rife. Food is in short supply. They're relying on their supplies from England to sustain them since they didn't recognise the flora and fauna of this new world. You can imagine being the first guy that went, "Oh, portobello mushrooms," and then died straight away. It is said that a person died almost every day until supplies came from England with new settlers too. It's just like a game of attrition. You've got to hope that the supplies get there quick enough with new colonists, otherwise you're fucked. So despite this being the new world, the settlers were aware of native peoples living there. Of course, they'd brought some back to meet Queen Elizabeth I. They know that they live there. They'd even had a run-in with a tribe, but they weren't safe in Jamestown. What they thought was a relatively safe spot on the bank of the James River was actually a river slap bang in the middle of a native tribe called the Senokamaka. Now, I'll be honest with you, the Native American words are very difficult to pronounce, and I believe that is pronounced correctly. So if it's not, please let me know. It's a T-S-E-N. Like, how the fuck do you say that?
T-S-E-N. I'd go like...
The T is kind of silent, and it's just like Sena or T-S.
Sen. Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Who knows? Now, relations were tense. The Senokamaka didn't know what the invaders wanted or how long they'd be there for. And one thing they did notice was how absolutely shit they were at staying alive and living off the land. It was probably quite funny to watch them all sort of go, oh, look at this plant. And it's like poisonous.
Yeah. It's trial and error, though, isn't it?
It is trial and error. Now, by winter of 1607, John Smith, as president of the Jamestown settlement, went out looking for food. While out, he was captured by the Senekamaka and paraded around other villages in the area. Now, he seemed to be relatively safe. They fed him, they didn't beat him, they treated him relatively well. He was fairly well behaved himself. He probably understood the situation he was in. I'm not going to make too much of a fuss. I will be offed. And the native peoples weren't overly happy about him being there, but they treat him well. Now, It's thought that the reason why, because it's quite confusing. They're like, why would you capture this guy and just not kill him or whatever? Mm-hmm. And the theory is that they're parading him from village to village to show that he's not that powerful. The invaders are not scary. Look at this white man who's our prisoner. We captured him. He's not that strong, clearly. We could beat them. We could fight them back. They are powerless. Oh, how naive the native peoples are to the English people. I bet there was a lot of that where they're just like, oh, these English people seem quite nice.
Isn't there stories of them welcoming ships in like open arms and giving them food and stuff, and then they just get slaughtered?
You should remember this because that's part of your Christopher Columbus episode where Columbus apparently, rocks up on the shore and these native peoples are like, oh my God, they're gods. And it's like, kind of not really. But yeah, I like the idea. But
that's what Thanksgiving is, isn't it? Isn't it about the pilgrims having a dinner with the natives?
I looked at this and I was like, oh, is this time? But it's not. It's pilgrims a little bit later. And yeah, it's one of those where they're having troubles with the locals and I think they have trouble with food and then they bring them food and it's, I don't know.
And then slaughter them later.
But no, I think that's to do with pilgrims. I don't think the pilgrims sort of slaughtered them. I don't really know, but maybe we'll do an episode on it one day. Eventually, John Smith is brought to the capital of the Senekamaka homeland, where he's introduced to the paramount chief Powhatan. Now, here he doesn't have so much of a warm welcome, or so John interprets. John claims that here he was tied up and brought into the paramount chief's tent, where those that brought him there are screaming, they're chanting, they're pushing him around. Now, he's not sure if they intend to kill him or not. He is at their mercy and unable to speak the language. It was at this moment that a young girl comes into the tent and, according to John Smith, huddles over him, arms wrapped around him as she stares at the chief. Now, after what feels like an eternity, the chief nods his head and John Smith is unbound and is given a little more freedom of the camp. He's stared at as an outsider, but people will talk to him. They will try to get him involved in things. So who is this girl that saved John and why does she have so much sway with the chief? Her name, can you guess the name, James?
I'm going to go with Pocahontas on this occasion.
No, technically it's not. No, it's not. Her name is Mataoaka.
You set me up to fail there, didn't you? Love that.
I set you up, but you're not wrong. It is a trick question, right? Her name is Mataoaka. She's the daughter of the chief, okay? She's one of many, but she is his favourite daughter who, since her mother's death, has grown increasingly close to her father. In fact, he completely dotes on her, so much so that she bears a striking resemblance to her own mother that her dad begins to call her by her nickname, Pocahontas.
Ah, there we go.
Yeah, so it's just a nickname, yeah. Now, she's born in 1596 as Mataoaka, but quickly gets her mother's name Pocahontas, which roughly translates to playful one. Now, she's very personable. The people love her. She gets stuck into everything, okay? She's doing cartwheels around the camps. She's hunting, foraging, playing games, spiritual beliefs. The people love her. She's like the people's princess. She's the Diana of the Native Americans.
You regretted that as soon as you said it, didn't you?
Yeah, I probably should edit that out, but I'm not going to. Now, if John Smith is to be believed, she's quite the looker as well, describing her as, quote, peerless, a child of 10 years old, which not only for feature, countenance and proportion much exceedeth any of the rest of Powhatan's people. And what's more romantic than calling a 10-year-old a little hottie?
Oh, I was going to say, let's not fucking gloss over the fact that you went, apparently she was a bit of a looker, and then followed it up with, she was 10 years old.
Yeah. Hey, they're John's words, not mine.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Again, I'm going to hold people to today's standards because that's what we do.
Well, we'll come to that.
She was 10 years old.
We will look at this, okay? Because this is Disney, okay? This is Disney doing this, right? So jokes aside, despite what Disney wants us to believe, we don't actually know if John Smith and Pocahontas had a relationship on any other level than that of an uncle and a niece, all right?
Okay.
The whole saving him from being killed moment is to this day questioned, all right? We don't actually know what the chief's intentions were. We don't know if Pocahontas was trying to save him. It's just what John Smith interpreted it as. And since he's an Englishman who doesn't understand the culture or the language, just assumes that they're all savages, and it's no wonder that he thinks that they just want to kill him. Some people have interpreted the story as being a ritual, that it invites him into the tribe and makes him one of them, and that was the point, was, you know, you can't be enemies with us because I've just made you one of us, you know. So there's something about that, and maybe Pocahontas coming in was to say, look, I would even have my daughter hug you, that's how much we're friends. So we don't know, it's just John interpreted as, oh, she saved me. So then the relationship, okay. What we do know is that after this interaction, he's given freedom to move about the village and interact with people, and he doesn't seem to have much trouble from the locals. He's constantly suspicious of them, which is understandable. He's in an alien land, he doesn't understand the people or the words. But what we do know is that he and Pocahontas become quite close. Now, it's important to remember here that he is in his late 20s when he meets 10-year-old Pocahontas. There's quite an age gap.
There is, yeah.
While it's not uncommon for men of his age to marry girls as young as this in this era, they are typically marriages of convenience, and intimacy is usually saved for when they're old enough. So while it's weird to look at, I think even they're aware she is a child, and it's like...
I get what you mean, yeah.
Yeah, right. So I don't see it as being outside of the realms of possibility to think that she just looks at him as a surrogate brother or uncle. And they spend time together, okay? Quite a lot of time together, learning words from each other. Pocahontas is really inquisitive. She asks lots of questions about his world, and she's keen to find out more about it. So when we look at it like this, I wonder whether that quote is just him saying about her in a way that maybe, you know, a family member talks about their brother or sister's kid and be like, oh, you know, she's a beautiful kid, like, you know, she's great, she's brilliant. So I don't know.
I get what you mean. And not in a sexual way or a romantic way.
Yes, not in a romantic sexual way, just more of a, you know, how a family member looks at a young person.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Goes,
I'm with you.
You know, I love them, they're great. I'm hoping it's that rather than Disney going, I don't know, let's just age up Pocahontas and make this more normal. Anyway. John is given freedom to go back to Jamestown, and friendly relations between the settlers and the Tennessee begin. Pocahontas would visit the settlement most weeks with a retinue of attendants bringing food and provisions, which definitely helped out the settlers because they're like, oh, wait, you can eat this. That's cool because I've been eating that and that doesn't work. She would talk to the settlers. She tried to, you know, use her English and learn a bit more, which I think she's awesome. And they all seem to like her. Everyone gets on with her. She's brilliant. She really is this like bridge between two cultures. I suppose the way of looking at her is maybe like an ambassador of the Seneca to the settlers. Okay. Like, is a really good way of looking at it. She comes over, she talks in English, teaches them a little bit about themselves, and she learns a bit about them, which she can take back to her home people and say, oh, they're not that bad, they do this, they do that, that's a bit weird, but that's what they're like, blah, blah, blah. Now, he certainly pushed this relationship too. There was another occasion where the Seneca wanted John Smith dead. So the settlers were expanding their land where they could and were taking the piss, basically, which pissed off the locals. And then he's accused at one point of stealing food from them. So the Chief Powhatan, who is Pocahontas' dad, who does seem to quite like John Smith, he decides, look, I like you, but you are taking the piss, so I'm going to have you executed. So he calls for his head.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Pocahontas, who obviously, you know, has quite a good relationship with John, she warns him about her father's wishes and argues on John Smith's case, but it's kind of pointless. It falls on deaf ears. And in 1609, well, it doesn't really matter because she finds out that her friend, or as far as Disney's concerned, lover, as far as I maybe look at it, brother, John Smith, is dead, which is sad.
I thought this whole story was going to be about John Smith and Pocahontas, but
so did I. When I looked into this, I was like, oh my God, yeah, this is the whole story about John Smith and Pocahontas. And then I find out John dies. It's honestly, as we go on, this is like an episode of EastEnders. It's brilliant.
Right. Okay.
So John's dead, okay? He's involved in a freak gunpowder accident, okay? And Pocahontas is distraught, okay? She stops visiting the settlement. Maybe it's too painful. She's going there. They all look like John Smith as far as she's concerned. And she the relationship between the two just completely breaks down to the point it really begins to sour. The settlers began a more invasive expansion of the area. They are more violent in their movements. They start putting pressure on the relationships with the locals and saying, oh, we're all friendly, but you give me that. And then they start taking the piss.
Yeah.
And I think it's important. This is a really good point to bring up, I think, that the settlers are starving at this point. So remember, Pocahontas is coming over with her retinue with some food and saying what you can and can't eat. But the settlers are not brilliant at it still, so they are relying on supplies coming in constantly. But a ship of supplies that they're waiting on has been delayed. It got caught up in a hurricane, which of course for them, they have no idea. It just doesn't arrive. And because of this, more and more people are dying, they're starving, and they're getting sick. And more drastic decisions are being suggested, such as the natives being forced to help them by providing food and supplies. Now, the native people are unresponsive to this, and pressure from their warrior people result in this just powder keg that is waiting to go off. Warriors are saying, we shouldn't be doing this. They shouldn't even be here. The settlers are then saying, oh, you should be helping us, and we're going to force you because we've got guns. And then it went bang. The first Anglo-Powhatan War begins. Among many casualties of this war and prisoners was Pocahontas herself. The settlers knew how important she was to the chief of the Senecameca. They saw her as an equivalent to a princess, okay? She was the ultimate ransom. She was captured and held in a camp by the settlers and used as a bargaining chip to release settler prisoners. Now, the settlers have no intention of releasing Pocahontas. So long as they hold her, they have power over him. Now, double bubble too, because it is thought that she is a wife and a mother by this time, that she's captured in 1613. So she's around 16, 17 years old at this point. So it's not unreasonable to suggest that she's a mother at this point and a wife.
Okay.
However, it's not 100% clear if this is true, and maybe it's a mistranslation of a story to say that she gets married later in life and that's the marriage that they're talking about. So it's not 100%.
Yeah.
Now, the Senecameca didn't have any written histories, and the English weren't overly interested in recording native histories either. So all we have is moments when the English are interacting with native people, and then they just write about them there because they're like, oh, and they were there too. And the other part is just wild assumptions that they were like, oh, the native peoples eat them. And it's like, no, what? No, they don't. They definitely don't. But because that's all we've got, we have to we go, oh, yeah, native people eat other people. It's like, that's not probably true. Now, if she was a mother, her child would have been very young, and being without her child must have been quite tough. I suppose knowing that the collective would have looked after her is still some sort of comfort, but still, it's not nice. Now, it was common practice for captured women to integrate themselves into their new tribe's culture, and Pocahontas was actually really good at this with the English. She could speak some English already. She found it really easy to integrate in some respects. There are rumours that she was sexually assaulted during her captivity, but it is debated. So a lot of these claims that she was viciously brutalized and raped.
Yeah.
This tends to come from Native American oral histories, which is fine, but it's tricky to be accurate when it's oral history, especially when you might have a reason to paint settlers out to be barbarous demons.
Right, okay.
Other historians argue that it made no sense for them to treat Pocahontas in this way, as it would bring down the wrath of the local population. They might have guns, but the settlers are vastly outnumbered, and running the risk of pushing the chief too far is not a good idea. Because he might just go, do you know what? Fuck it. I'll sacrifice her to get rid of all of you. The whole fucking Powhatan group, go.
Yeah.
But regardless, during her captivity, she meets a man named John Rolfe. Now, he's originally from Norfolk. He travels across the Atlantic to the New World, where he has become an expert in growing tobacco in the Virginian soil. Now, he had managed to illegally procure tobacco seeds from Trinidad, then held by the Spanish, who made it a death penalty to anyone who sells tobacco seeds to anyone who is not Spanish. So he gets this, like, this is a sweet deal. The idea that he's going to go out, he's a proper Del boy. He's managed to get these seeds from Trinidad. And they're like, how the fuck did you get that? And he's like, just fell off the back of a ship. Now, he grew a milder strain of tobacco in Virginia using these seeds. Now, the Spaniards and Native Americans had been growing tobacco for years, but for the Spanish, the strand was too strong. Only some people could sort of smoke it. It's a bit of an acquired taste. And the Native Americans grew it for religious purposes, so they weren't really utilising it to probably its best use, I suppose. John Rolfe's strain was more palatable, and it became an easy seller, thanks, John, for centuries of tobacco-related diseases. England is now addicted to his tobacco, and the colony was now becoming a plantation in essence. It was going that way. It attracted more investment and became a success over time, but there are still a few kinks. One, there are still the native peoples who they're at war with, and the fact that growing tobacco is a labour-intensive job. The second problem would eventually be solved with the introduction of African slaves to the Americas, which again, that's foreshadowing, but not our story today. So let's go back to that first problem. War with the natives. John is a widow. He had lost his wife and child on the crossing of the Atlantic, and his grief was alleviated when he laid his eyes on a young or late teenage girl, Powhatan princess. He's like, girl, I'm going to get native. I'm liking this. Now, they seemed to hit it off. They got on all right. So much so that John would even propose marriage to her in 1614. But despite the fact she's a prisoner, you know?
Yeah, it's a bit
weird.
odd.
Yeah, it is a bit odd, but whatever. It happened. She would agree, but there was a caveat. John wanted a native bride, but he was also a very religious man, and he questioned if it would be committing a sin to marry a heathen, as he himself is a good Christian.
Mm-hmm.
This problem is solved when Pocahontas was baptized into the Christian faith and changed her name to Rebecca. And they were married on April the 5th, 1614.
That's such a weak name to go from Pocahontas to Rebecca.
It is, isn't it? But I wonder why she chose Rebecca. I wonder what the thinking was. Maybe she must have seen someone. Maybe
she must have known someone, yeah.
Yeah, maybe someone else she knew was called Rebecca in the village, or he knew a Rebecca who quite liked it, or it was his sister or something. I don't know. The marriage was a positive thing for both the settlers and the Seneca. A peace was reached between the two, and Pocahontas, now Rebecca, lived with her husband John and their newborn son Thomas on his plantation for 2 years before she took a huge journey across the Atlantic to England in 1616.
Whoa.
Yeah, that is a wild, can you imagine, you've never been anywhere else, and all of a sudden it's like, you're going to go to this world and it's totally different.
It's wildly different.
She didn't know it then, but it would be the last time she was ever in her homeland. This episode, of course, is, as always, sponsored by ZingariMan.com. You can check out some of their amazing products. James, we've been trying some of them. I've been using a lot of the beard balms. I'm a bearded man, as some of us can see.
You are a bearded man.
I'm a bearded man, and I really enjoy some of these beard balms. I've got one that's called Emir, and I'm absolutely loving it. I'm like, you just get the little pipette, and you fill it up once, and it's like 3 little drops. It goes all over your beard. You rub it in, and it smells gorgeous all day. And I'm smelling myself, and I'm like, I smell good. I wonder if other people think I smell good. But you can't put your beard in people's faces and go, does this smell good? But I know that they know it. I know that they know I smell good. So have you been trying any of the other stuff that we've been given recently?
I have, Ryan. I'm glad you brought it up. So they sell bath bars as well. So obviously this is a male skincare company. I think women can use soap. I don't think it's the intended audience, but you're more than welcome. And there was one called The Watchman. And it's described as smelling as stormy air and dark seas, and I walk into the bathroom just to get a whiff of this soap. It's so nice. You know that scent when you go out and it's like just before a storm or just after a storm and the air is crisp and you're like, oh, this smells just like so fresh. Like that's what it smells. I can't tell you how much it actually smells like stormy air and dark seas. It's just so good. I spend ages in the shower just rubbing myself with it.
Washing it off, rub it again, washing it off.
I literally can't get enough of it. It's so nice.
No, I'm really enjoying it. I'm absolutely loving Zingari Man at the moment. I mentioned it before that these guys, they provide premium levels skincare for men. Just when we got the box of stuff coming in and we saw it and we were like, wow, this is so well packaged. Everything looks stunningly beautiful.
It's so professional. It is great.
It's that premium level skincare that is so well priced. But if you would like to get it even cheaper, you can do so. So if you head to www.singariman.com/TWPD podcast and at checkout put in TWPD10, you will get 10% off your order so that you can smell as good as James does in the shower every 2 minutes.
That's what everyone wants. And if you send us confirmation that you bought something, I'll send you a selfie of me doing a thumbs up.
I love that. That's a great incentive. So head over to the www.singariman.com/TWPD podcast and use at the checkout TWPD10 to get 10% off your order.
What are you waiting for? Do it.
The journey to England was a plan by the Virginia Company of London to help drum up more investment. They were like, oh, we've got tobacco, that's great, and that's making money. So they're like, come invest in this in settlement. But if they could sell the fact that a Native American princess has not only married into the English establishment, but converted to Christianity, come on, man, think of the work they could do with more money and influence. Come on, look at what we can do over there. Let's get this money rolling. Now, whether they married for love or not, they would become a showpiece for the company and gawped at by everyone. Pocahontas was a bit of a celebrity in England, as you can imagine. Everybody wanted to meet her. I'm sure they would have been a little disappointed as well when they met a courteous and friendly woman who knew a bit of English instead of this wild savage running around native that they were probably expecting.
Yeah.
She was put in English dress, she spoke English fairly well, she even met King James I, who Jamestown is named after. They were all fascinated with her. She was treated well enough, she wasn't royalty in the same sense of the king and his family, but she was seen as a princess. She's the daughter of a king. Not understanding that the Seneca hierarchy doesn't quite work like that as it did in Europe. This is the funny thing, is that they were like, oh my god, she's this princess. And they're like, no, she's not. She's the daughter of a chief, but the chief could be overthrown and someone else could be chief, and just because you're the chief, it doesn't mean that your lineage then becomes chief. Yeah. It's just not how it works. So
yeah, I'm with you.
There was even when John Rolfe and Pocahontas go and meet the king, there's like people in the background sort of being like, oh my god, look at this commoner who's married a princess. Oh my god, that's so bad. But obviously, in that world, it ain't. It's not bad. It's not weird at all. It's totally normal that anyone could have married her. You don't have to be a prince because that's not how they lived. And
but they've only got one version of the monarchy, haven't they, to like base this off? So to them, so the English people, it's bizarre. Yeah,
so they think this is an absolute scandal. They're like, some commoner who sells tobacco just married a princess. Like, oh my god, what the hell? Now, it must have been very overwhelming and intimidating at times for her. Pocahontas, with her English husband and son, split their time between their two homes in Brentford, in London, and Norfolk. Yeah, Brentford, just sort of up the road from the stadium, right? Now, I can't even imagine what it would be like for someone to be completely uprooted from a natural way of living to suddenly being put in corsets and dresses and having to curtsy to people and live in homes with glass windows and feather beds. It must have been really, really strange. And I may be overplaying the cultural differences and Pocahontas' ability to adjust, but even the culture would have been so different. If even like the food that you eat, like just shitty gruel instead of maybe gamey meat or whatever.
Yeah.
Now, she did bring with her a couple of men from her home area to act as a retinue, and even they must have had a massive culture shock because she at least knew some English, but these guys are there, basically bodyguards, I suppose, and even they're like, it's so cold here.
Yeah, it's such a different world.
Yeah, and like, it must have stank to high heaven, and just being like, you do what? You shit in a bowl. And you throw it out the window. What are you doing?
And just so like overpopulated as well. She must have been used to so much space, and this is just people on top of each other.
Imagine her walking through London, and it's just like there's a house here, and the next one's there, and you just like fucking shuffling through. It's crazy, dude. Now, it wasn't as though she didn't have any friends in England. Okay. She has one friend in England, okay? So one day she's visited by a man she thought dead. John Smith. Oh, it's cue the EastEnders moment, isn't it? Do. Like, he just walks in like, Pocahontas, and she's like, John.
Sorry?
It's great. I know, right? She's overcome, more with anger than anything else. She thought he was dead. When he confronted her, she turned away and hid her face. She ran away. She couldn't see him. She was left on her own for a few hours before she could finally face him. They had a full-on confrontation. Pocahontas was pissed. She's angry at the fact that her father had gone to such lengths to make John and the settlers welcome. She had put her neck on the line for him. She saw him as one of the family, and she felt betrayed that he had just left her without saying goodbye.
Yeah.
Why did he leave? And why did she believe him dead?
Mm-hmm.
Now, that gunpowder accident, it did indeed happen. It wounded him quite badly, and he was shipped back to England for treatment. He never had a chance to tell her that he was going away. Why the settlers told her that he was dead, nobody knows. Maybe it was a way to begin hostilities between them. Maybe a friendship between the two was too slow settlement plan-wise, making it harder to move into friendly territories if you're pals with them. Maybe it's just easy if you're enemies.
Yeah.
Either way, John Smith had actually kept his distance when he found out that she was in England with her husband and her son. That would be the last time they would interact. I don't think she wanted anything to do with him after that. I think it's actually quite a sad story.
No, it's sad because they were so close.
Yeah, they probably could have been really good friends in England together. I imagine he could have taken her and her husband and gone, look, we're going to go see this place and blah, blah, blah. I think they would have loved it. It would have been great. Honestly, when I was like, oh my God, he's actually alive. That's crazy. Now, after 9 months in England, Pocahontas is quite homesick. Her retinue is getting sick too, which is, if I'm honest, quite understandable. They're in filthy old London where disease is only a cough away. Sanitation is not the best, and Pocahontas and her retinue have no natural immunity to standard illnesses in London. She decided she wants to head back to Virginia with her family where they can live closer to her people. John Rolfe agrees. It makes sense for him too, in a business perspective. He can focus on making money with his tobacco plantations. But in March of 1617, the family set off on a ship on the Thames, but only make it as far as Gravesend in Kent. Pocahontas falls incredibly ill, possibly with tuberculosis. She is unlikely to make the journey at this rate and is to rest up before setting sail again, but she wouldn't step foot back on that ship. Her illness burns through her. According to her husband John Rolfe, some of her last words were, "All must die," before passing on. Maybe the words were a small comfort just to her or to her son and her husband. You know, it's just fine, it happens, it's part of life. Don't worry about it, it's fine. Rebecca Rolfe, aka Pocahontas, dies aged 21 in Gravesend in Kent. In fact, she's buried in Kent, and it's still a place that people go to visit to pay their respects to the Powhatan princess. I actually only found out that Pocahontas was buried, or died in Kent at least, because there's a statue of her that I was like, that's really random, why would that be there? But it's because that's where she's buried in Kent. But I also, as someone who's from Essex, and we have quite a bit of banter with those from Kent, the fact that she dies in Gravesend, which, if I'm honest, I'm sorry those in Gravesend, it's not the nicest of places. I love the idea that she sort of stepped foot in Gravesend and went, I'm done, I'm out.
The moral of the story is don't go to London or Kent.
London is not good for you.
Because it will kill you.
Yes, London
it will kill you.
Yeah.
That's sad. I mean, it's also so sad that she came from this beautiful place and died in Kent.
Yeah, in Gravesend of all places. So, like, there's an idea that she's in a high street, and it's she's in the high street, and there's just Betfred open.
Yeah,
like, I'm done. I can't do it.
That is upsetting for her. I mean, it's the fact she was only 21 as well. That's so young.
She's 21. Yeah, so young, so young. Now, obviously, Pocahontas still lives on in pop culture. There are movies made of her, such as the Disney film of the same name, but Disney did what Disney does and turned it into a romance that likely never happened. It's completely historically inaccurate and arguably drives the wrong message. Nobody really expects it to be authentic, but when you play with real historical figures, you skew people's views on things, and if they don't look into the real history of it, begin to then make assumptions and mistakes on false information. Listen, you and me have had this sort of argument before when we talked about Napoleon. Should a film be historically accurate? And it's like, yeah, but if it entices some interest, but you don't look deep enough, your information is then wrong. And I grew up thinking, oh, Pocahontas is like this young girl in her 20s and she's the only daughter of the chief.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
Like, no, she's one of many daughters of the chief who has many wives. He just happens to like her the most. And she's not 20 odd, 30 odd, whatever. She's a child.
Yeah, I mean, when you said that you were doing this episode, I just immediately thought of the Disney movie. That's sort of the only reference material I've got.
It's so intertwined. Yeah, she's nothing like the real Pocahontas. There is one image of Pocahontas, and even that, like, it looks nothing like what you imagine she would look like. She's in English dress with, like, one of those high-necked things going on.
I have to Google this now.
This is the only known image of her.
Is it the black and white one?
Yeah.
Well, obviously black and white, but it's like it's a circle.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, I've got it.
So all the other ones, if you look at her statue of her in our graveside in Kent, she's like this, beautiful Native American woman with a feather out the top of her head, and it's like, nope, doesn't look like that. Does not look like that.
Yeah. I suppose the culture was sort of forced on her a little bit.
Oh, massively. Like, you look at her in that picture, and I'm not going to say she's uncomfortable, but it's like, if you're used to maybe having looser fitting outfits and clothes in your native lands, and you're now strapped up in corsets, you're cinched to high heaven, all this sort of stuff, and you're wearing this stupid hat, and I've got a ruff that goes up my neck and I can't look down. It's really weird. Like, it's strange.
Yeah. It's just the rewriting of history, isn't it? I suppose it's the westernization of history.
Yes. Yeah.
But that is a shame, because she clearly wanted, like, she got married, and she befriended John Smith, and then she got married to the other fella, John Rolfe, and then so she clearly wanted it. Like, she wasn't. I don't think there was a gun pointed to her head and said you have to do this.
Well, this is the thing, and I must stress that there are two different ways of looking at this story. I have looked at it from a Pocahontas kind of is going along with all this stuff, but there is an angle to it by lots of people that say she was stolen, she was kidnapped, and don't get me wrong, she was taken as a prisoner, and that's how she met John Rolfe. If she hadn't been taken as a prisoner, she probably would not have met John Rolfe, she would not have got married to him, she would not have gone to England, and she wouldn't have died there. We're not disputing that. But the point is, she's an inquisitive person who seems to be, eager to learn more about the world outside of her own. And she wants to speak with the English. She wants to learn their language. And she's okay with going to England. And she meets all these people. And I think, despite her having such a short life, I don't think she probably would have done it any other way. I think she's got some quite good experiences from it. I don't know. Maybe that's unfair. I don't know.
Yeah, it's one of them that unless you speak to her, you have no idea.
Yeah, like, she definitely goes through some hardships.
The history, of course, is written by the English as well. So if there were... I have no doubts that her family back in America missed her dearly and would have a very different telling of this story.
Yes, and that's the point, I suppose. There are two sides to this story. And maybe even I'm doing a disservice to the story itself and looking at it too cleanly, because there is not some clean stuff in this. If it's true, she was pulled away from her family and married into another one and has to start another family, and she's taken to a new world where she ends up dying. When you look at it from that side with those glasses on, yes, it's horrific, it's awful, it's not very nice. I think there's some middle ground between it all. There's the real story somewhere.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah. Now, she's also remembered in songs, books. She's got stamps with her face all over it. There's plenty of naval US ships that have got her name on the side of it. Her husband, John Rolfe, he would go back to Virginia despite her dying to make his fortune. He would go on to remarry, because man's got to do what man's got to do. He would die in 1622. Her son, Thomas, would also live in Virginia and was the first child to be born of both native and English peoples legally, because I'm sure there were plenty of bastards that were made not so nicely. He would go on to claim Powhatan's land, saying he's the grandson of the chief. I am the son of Pocahontas. But that, again, like I said earlier, it's not really how it works over there. He never really engrossed himself into his native heritage, so he was more of an Englishman than anything else.
Yeah.
There are no proper records of his death, but he would marry and have children who would outlive him, and his descendants are still alive today. Some notable descendants of Pocahontas include actor Edward Norton from Fight Club.
No way.
Yeah, apparently he's they do like a show like what we have. Who
do you think you are?
Who do you think you are? He did one of those, and he found out, oh my god, I'm actually related to Pocahontas. That's really cool.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And Edith Bolling Wilson, who was the First Lady of the United States and wife of President Woodrow Wilson.
Wow. Got into politics.
Yeah, so those are her descendants. They are still around today. So in some respects, Pocahontas is still with us. Her legacy lives on.
Nice. Even if it's through a Disney film as well.
Yeah, that's the thing. But then it's one of those. Listen, the fact that the Disney film exists, it means that people will watch it. They'll know who she is. They might look into it. I don't know. Maybe I'm arguing against my own argument.
I'm not a Disney fan. I think I've seen the film. I can't recall if I have. I was very young. I consider myself quite clued up on the world in general, and the fact that that was my reference material, and I thought it was just a story, is alarming, because I imagine there'd be a lot of other people that are the same.
Yes, and for some people, this is their history, their heritage, their people's heritage. You know what I mean? And we think of it as just a Disney film.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's the story of Pocahontas.
Fascinating. Screw you, Disney.
Yeah. So I said I'd have a short one because obviously the last episode we spoke about Gyeongbokjiwon in South Korea, and that was not very nice. And the next 2 episodes, if I'm honest, are not very nice. So we needed a palate cleanser. We needed something in between to sort of, cheer us up a little bit and go, oh, that was quite nice, kind of.
What part of the story made you go, oh, that was quite nice?
Well, she
died in Kent. That's awful.
She died in Gravesend, yeah, which is funny because I heard once why Gravesend is called the way it's called, but I can't remember what it is, so it doesn't really matter. Why did I bring it up? But yeah, I don't know. It's a bit of a palate cleanser. There's no sort of slaughtering and death in this. There's a war in it, but we didn't go into detail, so I think that's fine. But the next episode, I think, is actually quite a positive story, despite the fact it happens in Auschwitz.
Dramatic pause.
What a way to promote an episode. But yeah, anyway, so just to remind you all, this episode is sponsored by Zingari Man. If you want to smell as good as James and I, head to www.zingariman.com/TWPD podcast and use TWPD10 at the checkout to get 10% off your order and smell as good as we do. Thank you very much for listening.
Ta-ra.